Islam should be seen as the correction of Judaism and Christianity, not a separation from Judaism and Christianity. We are the correction of them. We are a restoration of Judaism to original Judaism. We would say original Judaism is Islam itself, and original Christianity would be Islam itself. Islam is a means by which we are restoring those religions to their original place.
The idea that Islam is the reformer of Christianity and Judaism is only mentioned by certain people, and other Muslims easily accept it. But they never allow themselves to think about how religions with different rituals, different histories, and even different religious sites, how can Islam be the reformer of these religions? Similarly, in Christianity, we have a concept called the Trinity, and this concept is not included in Islam at all. And likewise, the concept of salvation through the law exists in Judaism, and this concept is also completely rejected by Islam. So again, you tell me, how can Islam be the corrector of these religions when it doesn't accept these standards at all? And Muslims say that we are the reformers of those religions, but a Christian or a Jew would never accept it from that point of view. For them to accept Islam, they would have to destroy all of their beliefs. It's not that they would be changing the path of their beliefs or correcting their way, but rather they would have to change all of their beliefs entirely. This is wrong.
That's the goal of Islam. But our mentality became us versus them. Not us restoring them, us helping them find their way back. I want you to think of Jews and Christians from the Muslim perspective. We see them as groups that are deviated from the path. But they were on the path. They still have some parts of the path, but deviated from it. I consider them potential Muslims.
Well, as I said, we've seen that these kinds of Muslims say that Islam is a straight path and that other Abrahamic religions have deviated from it. As I've explained, something like this is not acceptable at all, because Christians can't erase the concept of the Trinity they've created in their own minds and accept the concept of monotheism. And similarly, Jews can't completely reject salvation through the law that exists in their religion by accepting Islam. And this is also for you Muslims. How can you accept that there are thousands of religions in the world and that your religion is the only correct one? What about all the other religions? I have the same thing to say to Christians too. You as Christians think that only your religion is correct. So what about the people who have 999 other religions? Are they all mistaken and you're the one who's right? I can say with confidence that all the people who are part of these 1,000 religions are all biased and cannot accept that religion is something wrong.
This tells us that we have to study Fir'aun very carefully. This ayah tells us, because we always say, know your enemy. Know your opponent. The opponent, every major opponent of the truth is some kind of Fir'aun.
If you listen to what he says, know your enemy. It's only these Muslims who, whenever they deem it appropriate, say they have an enemy, and whenever they deem it appropriate, say they don't have an enemy. And it's the Islamic interpreters who tell you Muslims that you can't and you don't have the power to identify the enemy. Whenever we say a certain person is an enemy, you can also destroy and kill them. And still, they say their religion is a religion of peace. No, your religion is not a religion of peace. Your religion is one where whenever you've had power, whenever you've been able, and your interpretation has allowed you to call someone an enemy, you call them an enemy. And you've taken this permission away from your ordinary people. Instead, your interpreters decide who the enemy is and how to present the facts. Why should people have enemies in the first place? If we put the concept of religion aside, we have no enemies among us whatsoever. Even borderlines. In my opinion, all of their wars can have a religious cause. And it's these kinds of people, these kinds of religious individuals who cause such wars and create such enmities. And I have other videos on my channel that show just how much Islam talks about enmity and war. Watch those as well and don't miss out. Let's listen to the rest of what he has to say.
The stories of the Quran are actually Allah superimposing the Prophet's story on the stories that happened before. And of those stories, the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam and of Musa alayhi salam are probably the top two most important ones. If you were to say the ones that impact the seerah directly the most, they would be Ibrahim alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam. Okay? Now,
well, you see, these Muslims talk so casually about Abraham and Moses, and other Muslims listen to them, and they never ask themselves this question. This Abraham who is referred to as a prophet, wasn't he the same Abraham who introduced his wife Sarah to the Pharaoh as his sister? And after the Pharaoh found out about this, he got angry and gave her back to Abraham. And wasn't this Abraham the same one who said that God told him he must sacrifice his son Ishmael? In this day and age, what if your neighbor came and said, God told me I have to sacrifice my son, and then a sheep came down from the sky to say, sacrifice the sheep instead of your son? Wouldn't you tell that neighbor, go away, you sick, crazy person? How can you in this day and age call such a person a prophet? In this day and age, such people can't even be considered human. Don't you say that religion is forever and for all time? Why do their actions make absolutely no sense in our modern age? And in the same way, we've heard many stories about Moses that are completely unbelievable. And there's even one story that I found very interesting, where Moses witnessed a fight between an Israelite and an Egyptian. Then he attacked the Israelite and killed the Israelite and was forced to flee from Egypt. If in our society today, two people get into a fight, and regardless of whether you know who is at fault and who is not, if you attack one of them and kill them, are you a murderer or not? Would they call you a prophet? How can these Muslims refer to these individuals as prophets? And you don't even question it yourselves.
having said that, there's another significance to this issue, this subject matter. And that is, why is Allah highlighting particularly Musa alayhi salam with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam? He is the only messenger. First of all, he's the first messenger who was given two missions. He was given a mission to give a message to Fir'aun and his people. And then he was given a mission to lead his own nation after that. He was the governor of his own people, and he was supposed to lead them to live by Allah's deen after they crossed the water. You guys know that, right? So those are two very different missions. There's a mission towards Fir'aun and there's a mission towards Bani Israel. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam had two missions, and in fact the Quran is divided according to those two missions. One mission was da'wah to the Quraysh, just like Musa alayhi salam had to do da'wah to Fir'aun. Then Musa alayhi salam crossed the water, and Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam crossed the desert, and now he's in Medina. When he's in Medina, he has to lead the Muslims, just like Musa alayhi salam had to lead the Bani Israel. And then Allah commanded Bani Israel to fight. And what did Allah command Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam to do? To fight. The seerah of Musa alayhi salam is a blueprint for the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam.
If you've listened closely, I'm here to present the facts to you in their own words. Did you hear what he said? The Medinan Wars, those were the wars during which the Quranic verses were revealed after Mecca. When the Prophet was in Mecca, the verses were all about peace. But when he went to Medina, the verses became about war. Yes, he's right, but this has a different backstory. The reason is that when he was in Mecca, Muhammad didn't have many supporters. They were few, and he didn't have the ability to fight. But when he went to Medina, the number of people grew, the number of Muslims grew, and Islam expanded. And through these wars, they could acquire a lot of spoils for the people who were living in that region. And these spoils and the wealth they generated had led to their expansion. This is the main reason for the Medinan Wars, not following Moses and using him as a role model. It's better to look at this issue from a more accurate perspective as well.
But I'll give you a glimpse of that. Why did Allah choose this place? Why not China? Why not Persia? Why not other parts of Africa? Why not Europe? Why this place? You know why? You will notice that the three major religions that still hold on to scripture of the prophets, even in corrupted form, but the three that hold on are Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And that's attributed to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Musa alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam, and the places where these prophets came, the regions in which these people were, are all regions where Ibrahim alayhi salam traveled. The Levant. These are the Israelite prophets. All of this has to, Ibrahim alayhi salam was in Hijaz. Ibrahim alayhi salam was in Palestine. Wherever Ibrahim alayhi salam went, right? And these are, they call them the Abrahamic faiths. Actually, the Quran, the coming of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was completing what Ibrahim alayhi salam started. He's actually completing what Ibrahim alayhi salam started. And you will notice that the Sahaba, when Islam was expanding, right, one of the priorities was actually to expand Islam immediately to all the places where Ibrahim alayhi salam's footprint was. Actually, it's pretty interesting. The Muslims didn't invade China. You notice that? So there's something going on there. The Muslims didn't go and immediately invade India, even though it's not that far. But where are we engaged? We're engaged with the Persians, which have some influence from the Jews and the Christians, and then of course the Roman territories, right? We're dealing with the Jewish and the majority the Christian civilization.
This Muslim claims that Islam has emerged wherever Abraham's footprints are found, but that's not true at all. Who said Muslims didn't attack China and India? They did attack, I'll tell you. First of all, they attacked in the 11th, 13th, and 14th centuries. They didn't attack in the early centuries because there was a scientific reason, not these superstitions that you feed to the people and Muslims, saying that wherever Abraham's footprints are, Islam has also spread there. No, that's not the case at all. The reason is that geographically, India and China were a great distance from Mecca and Medina, which at that time were the center of Islam's growth. The second reason is that from a political and military standpoint, Muslims were not capable of confronting the powerful empires that existed in India and China at that time. The third reason is that in terms of natural borders, India had the Himalayan mountains and China had the Great Wall with its grandeur and size. And the next reason was economic and involved scientific exchanges. Many Muslims, through the Silk Road and the scientific exchanges they had with India and China, were consequently deterred from attacking in that direction. It's better to examine these issues from a scientific and historical perspective and explain them to Muslims in this manner, not through superstitions saying that wherever Abraham's footprint was, Islam therefore spread there. This is completely superstitious and wrong. Muslims, be aware.
That's actually how the Quran wants, particularly more than Jews, actually Christians. Interestingly. Why is that interesting? Because the Jews have more knowledge of the book. And the Christians have lesser knowledge of the book. But Allah has more hope in the Christians in the Quran than He does in the Jews. That's clear in the Quran. The way Allah talks about Christians is very different than how He talks about the Jews. Very different. In fact, He's much softer with the Christians and much harsher with the Jews. That's just how it is in the Quran.
The reason that the Quran is somewhat harsher towards Jews than it is towards Christians is not in fact because Jews have read the Quran more thoroughly than Christians have. What is this nonsense that you are feeding to the Islamic community? It's that at that time there were more Jewish tribes living around the Prophet than Christian tribes. And this meant that in their dealings and also in accepting Islam, it was harder for the Jews than for the Christians. And Muslims would go to war with the Jews more often, and this led to Muhammad revealing more verses about the Jews.
That's actually how the Quran wants, particularly more than Jews, actually Christians. Interestingly. Why is that interesting? Because the Jews have more knowledge of the book, and the Christians have lesser knowledge of the book. But Allah has more hope in the Christians in the Quran than He does in the Jews. That's clear in the Quran. The way Allah talks about Christians is very different than how He talks about the Jews. Very different. In fact, He's much softer with the Christians and much harsher with the Jews. That's just how it is in the Quran. And Allah gives His reasons. So that's a study by itself that's deserved. But now we get to this really key piece of the ayah. We have sent a messenger to you.
Do you know exactly where this argument falls apart? It's exactly where Islamic governments like Iran, the Taliban in Afghanistan, and ISIS come in In my opinion, ISIS hasn't been destroyed yet, because ISIS is an idea, but their numbers have just decreased. These were Islamic governments. Could you criticize them to their face? No, they would kill you right there. Exactly, now just replace the pharaoh with Islamic governments. Aren't they the same? Perhaps these Muslims might respond by saying, no, these Islamic governments are not acceptable, they're extremists, and so on. These same Islamic governments, when they wanted to form their governments, were ordinary people and Muslims just like you, and they formed these governments with the support of people like you. A prime example is Ayatollah Khomeini, who 40 years ago came, gathered the Muslims, and established the Islamic government in Iran. You can go and completely compare these Islamic governments with this person's words and see if today's Muslims are any better than what he says.
The Quraysh, the elites, think they are above the law. Like Fir'aun thinks he is above the law. In fact, he thinks he is the law. Right? Now, when someone's above the law and you say, hey, I saw you commit a crime. I saw you. If somebody says, Fir'aun, I saw you kill somebody. I know what you did. Fir'aun's going to say, yeah? Now you're going to watch me kill you. Because when you say, I have a witness, the witness will go report the crime to the government. Isn't that the case? But if you have a witness of a crime, but the crime is being committed by the government, where are you going to take the testimony? TikTok? So that we can all say, we got to do something about it. I know we don't have any power, but we got to do something. Somebody better do something. You know what the idea is? When people have a certain level of power, they don't even care that you're a witness. Are we seeing that nowadays? You want to watch us do our genocide? You want to watch us do our kill? Go ahead and watch. Cry about it. It's the same as Fir'aun's going to do it, and he can do it in front of everybody. لَأُقَطِّعَنَّ أَيْدِيَهُمْ وَأَرْجُلَهُمْ مِنْ خِلَافٍ. I'm going to chop off their hands and feet from opposite sides. I'm going to hang them in the street. أُصَلِّبَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. He's got the entire country as a witness. Does he care? No. Because he knows, even if there are witnesses, who are they going to report it to? Me? I am the law. I am the Constitution. I am the government. I am their God. Now Allah says, I have sent a messenger as a witness against you. A witness against you.
When they say our Prophet's actions were good, I don't even know how to explain this to you. How can Muhammad's actions be good when he goes and marries a 9-year-old girl named Aisha, consummates the marriage and sleeps with her? How is it that for all Muslims the marriage law is 4 wives, and that's with the condition that if you can be just, you can own 4 women? In this modern age, owning a woman is just a ridiculous concept, but in the text of the Quran itself, it says you can own 4 women if you can establish justice, but for the Prophet it's not like that. Meaning, the book that God sent for all people in society for all time gave Muhammad permission to have more than 4 wives. But for all other Muslims, it's 4 wives. How can you perceive these actions as good and say that our Muhammad performed good deeds? How are you really thinking? If someone in today's modern age were to come and start all the wars that Muhammad started and take so many wives and marry a 9-year-old child, would you as a human being accept him while you accept Muhammad as a prophet for all time?
لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. So you can be witnesses against all of humanity. All of humanity will stand up on Judgment Day and say, we didn't know what Islam was. I thought Islam was terrorism. I thought Islam was beating women. I thought Islam was extremism. I didn't know.
Well, did you hear what he said? He says Islam is not misogynistic. He is completely mistaken. Real Islam is misogynistic. Rather, the behaviors they exhibit in this modern age are not Islamic. They have aligned with society, and those bad Islamic behaviors have actually been eliminated over time. If we were to read the hadiths that exist in Bukhari and many other hadith books, we would see that Islam is indeed misogynistic. I'll even put the hadiths aside. In 4 verses of the Quran, we can clearly see how misogynistic Islam is. The verse on inheritance says that a son inherits twice the share of a daughter. The verse on testimony says that If a witness is needed, it should be one man. If a man is not available, you can bring two women in place of that one man to testify. Here too we can see that a woman's testimony is half that of a man's. And there are many hadiths that say this is because a woman's intellect is half that of a man's. This is stated according to the hadith books and is not at all compatible with modern science. The next verse is the verse on divorce. You can see in the text of the Quran itself that it tells men, if you can be just, to own 2, 3, or even 4 women. Is a woman a tool to be owned in our modern age? How can you claim that real Islam is not misogynistic? Whereas this is the explicit text of your Quranic verse and you today are corrected, you yourselves are reformed. You are a reformed Islam. And the last verse, which is in the text of the Quran, is when it says, if your women disobey you, it lists a series of steps, and in the final step, it explicitly says to beat them. Why doesn't it say that if your men disobey, women can beat them? Why does it say that men can beat women?
If Islam is so beautiful, how come I didn't see it? How come I never noticed in my coworker? I never noticed in my college friend. I never noticed in my cousin that was Muslim. I never noticed in my extended family that some of them were Muslim. I didn't see the beauty and power of Islam and this message and these words. I didn't know.
When someone says Islam is beautiful, it really makes me laugh. With these interpretations, how is Islam beautiful? Is the life of someone who doesn't accept Islam different from someone who does? Do they have a different kind of life? In my opinion, no. Christian, Muslim, Jew, atheist, they all have one life, and it's their culture, consciousness, and upbringing that determines how each person speaks and how they behave. And it's not because of religion that one says Islam is beautiful, but rather it's the inherent qualities of that person that bring beauty.
When he was listening to Hassan ibn Thabit recite this ayah, and he got to this ayah, from the beginning of Surah An-Nisa, Rasulullah said, Kafa, 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 hasbuk, hasbuk, hasbuk. Enough, 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 enough. I can't listen anymore. It's too much. The ayah we heard today made him fall unconscious. That ayah he couldn't take anymore.
Well, here we also hear that he says he converted to Islam by reciting the Quran and said, enough, enough, I can't take it anymore. Yes, that's exactly it. If you as an ordinary person go and read 10 pages, 15 pages, or even just 5 pages of the Quran, your fear will make you say, what if Islam is actually real? So it's his fear that caused him to accept Islam and nothing else. It's not as if God miraculously appeared in his mind. No. There are so many threatening verses in the Quran. You can see that in many places it says, if you don't become a Muslim, you will be killed. If you do not convert to Islam, then this disaster, that punishment, that hell, that death, and a painful torment will ultimately become your fate. These are all threats. On every single page, you hear several threats, and this was the only way for those people to convert. Yes, go and read it, you'll see how much you're being threatened. And how can you so easily accept a religion that threatens you this way, without even questioning it yourselves? A lot of effort went into making this video, and many books were studied for it. Be sure to like this video, and tell us your opinions in the comments section. In the next video, we'll be looking at a Christian named Sam Shamoun, and we'll listen to his talks about the Trinity, and I will provide my critique for you. If you don't want to miss the next video, make sure to subscribe to our channel as well. And I also want to hear your opinions about Islam. If you're an atheist, then state your opinion, and if you're a Muslim, well, you certainly won't accept my words if you're a Muslim because you are biased. But I would still like you to share your biases with us in the comments section so our discussion and interaction doesn't end here, and in the comments we can reach an honest and logical conclusion. Until the next video, goodbye.